You're listening to Prosper in the Kingdom, the podcast where faith meets practical strategies to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Join hosts John Cleaver and Wendy Lee as they share insights to equip you in your journey toward abundance, spiritually, financially, and beyond. Just a reminder, every situation is unique. The content of this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as specific financial or medical advice.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another Prosper in the Kingdom. I am your host, John C., with the ever amazing Wendy Lee. Wendy, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Excited for today's episode.
So am I, man. I'm fired up. And I'm telling you what, our intro music, I feel like if you've seen that commercial where they're dancing to the hold music, I forget the actor's name. He was in, I don't know, he's been in several movies, but young guy, and he's dancing to the hold music. That's what I feel like when we're coming in. So I always come into this with a smile on my face. So anyway.
And you actually do dance to the music.
I do. It's a little behind the scenes activity for you there. It's the happenings behind the happenings on our podcast and YouTube channel. So speaking of that, give us some love, man. If you're getting information out of this that you can use, make sure, number one, you're sharing it, but subscribe, click that little like button. It really helps us out for the algorithms and getting our message out there and helping others just like you. And it's so simple and easy for you to do. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-0 on the podcast platforms, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iHeart, whatever the case may be. And if you are watching us on YouTube and getting the full flow of my personal dance moves, again, give us some love there too. So, but that is not what we're talking about today. I am super excited about this. It's kind of like one of these things I feel like we've been building up to this. But so many of us, especially, our Christian brothers and sisters out there, feel like, why isn't something happening? Where's my manna from heaven, right? And they feel stuck, right? And here's the reality of it, though, and this is the title of today's episode. You're not just stuck, you've been conditioned. And so we're going to talk about how to break free from that, right? And I'm going to say something right now, and I hope it doesn't ruffle any feathers, but know that I say it with love. Most people aren't going to say this to you, but you're not just stuck financially, okay? You've been conditioned to stay that way. You've been conditioned to work. You've been conditioned to spend. I mean, look at all the commercials about, look at this, buy this to make your life happy. You need to buy this. And if you don't have the money, that's okay. Credit cards are here for you, and it's all that YOLO, live for now. I mean, this is the whole corporate mantra we just get inundated with. And we're conditioned to think that making a paycheck is enough, right? Be content, be happy, play small, right? And here's the result. You wake up, I don't know whether it's 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, you will wake up one day and you realize you've been running hard all this time, but not getting ahead. And here's the reality that most of us avoid, right? I did for a period, and then I kind of, hey, I need to get a checkup from the neck up and take ownership. But here's the reality most people avoid. There's a battle over your life. Okay, there's a battle going on. And if you're a Christian, you may have heard it as spiritual warfare or whatever the case may be. But it's not just that. It's so much more. There's a battle for the money in your pocket. There's a battle for your time. That's why you see all these games and stuff going on. And I'm not trying to go down a conspiracy rabbit hole here, but I just want you to understand there's a battle going on for your life. And if you can't stop your faith, or if it can't stop your faith, it's going to distract your focus. Okay, well, I'm a good Christian. I go to church. Okay, I get all that, but it's going to distract your focus. That's what all this noise out there is about. Because if your money stays chaotic, right, your life stays limited. I want you to hear me on that. If your money stays chaotic, your life stays limited. Okay. I don't know if you want to add to that. I feel like I just got up behind the pulpits here. So
you're good, but I'm going to let you keep talking until the monthly practice alarm is over of the.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I hear it. Yeah, I hear it. So that's not our in-house show. That's we're near our studio's near a facility, and once a month they do a practice alarm, and we just happen to be starting as they started going. So let's go back to the cycle, right? So this cycle I'm talking about, I want you to be clear. It's not accidental, right? It's not something that just happened. Let's just call it clean, right? The cycle most people are in, like I said, doesn't happen by accident. And here it is. I mean, this, right? You work, you spend, you try to save a little, and then you repeat. You work, you spend, try to save a little, and you repeat. That's the system. It's that simple, right? You're told, go out, get a good job, right? Stay safe, don't rock the boat, put a little away and hope it grows, fingers crossed, I'm hoping, right? Meanwhile, reality, life, IRL, right? In real life, prices are going up, taxes are going to take more. You look at the debt, and right now, I think, the peak is at 37% ish. And it's been as high as 94 on federal taxes. And you look at the deficit we've got going on, the debt we have, my opinion, call me out on this. I think taxes they're going to have to increase. Right. And then debt fills that gap. I'm not making enough money. So swipe.
Yeah.
All these different credit cards are, piling up and taking. Right now, we've got more credit card debt in the United States than we did right before the 2008 real estate collapse. Okay. So keep that in mind, right? Keep that in mind. So if you're wondering why things feel tight, well, I mean, because it is, because our money is chaotic, and scripture warned us about this kind of empty chase of, living for the now and stuff like that. Here's the reality of it. And it's in Ecclesiastes 5:10, bust out the manual, right? Your Bible, that's the life manual. He who loves money will not be satisfied. And what that means, it's not just about, oh, I love money. It's about, if you don't understand money and what it's really for and how to leverage it and use it to your benefit, you're going to chase it your whole life and still feel behind, right? And think about that, just kind of pause for a moment and reflect what you've been doing with your money, and ask yourself, I don't know if you're listening to this and maybe you're 30 or you're in your 40s or maybe even 50s. Are you where you thought you would be at this point in your life? Are you where you thought you would be financially? I'm going to guess that 99% of the people out there, the answer is a definitive no, because we've never really taken ownership of our money and learned the lessons behind it and treated it for what it really is. Right.
Yeah. No. Good stuff. And, you were talking about debt earlier, and that making ends meet. And we meet with clients on a regular basis. I mean, we're meeting with multiple clients a week, sometimes multiple clients a day. And more often than not, people are strangled by debt. And, you were talking about that spiritual warfare piece. And the truth is, I believe that enemy has used debt to strangle Christians financially so that we can't do the things that we're called to do. And, debt can be a tool for super wise investors, but for most people, it's a complete trap.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And the Bible is super clear. Proverbs 22:7. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've heard this before, but the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. Slave. Okay. There's a reason that God decided to add this in the Bible, right? Have Solomon speak this to us. When you're a slave, that means you're under someone else's control. And so often we're owing everything to everybody. And so we can't control our life. I mean, the freedom that people would have. I mean, we see people all the time with debt payments that equal over $1,000 a month, sometimes $2,000 a month, 500, 800. We throw cars in there. Sometimes it's 4,000 a month that people are spending just on debt, just paying for, when it comes to consumer debt, you're paying for your past. You're not investing in the future. And when you do that, you don't get to make bold moves. You don't get to take opportunities. And a lot of times you don't have any breathing room. And that's just
No
not,
margin.
that's not how we're designed to live. And it is truly a tool of the enemy to keep us trapped.
Yeah, and I want to just kind of stress on what Wendy just said there. And I know some of you are like, well, it doesn't control my life. I do what I want and when It's not like they're, you've got somebody standing over you with a stick, telling you what to do and going to hit you if you don't, right? That's not what we're talking about. Well, what we're talking about is really, you can't do the things you need to do because you've got debt that you've got to pay. You're maybe staying stuck in a dead end job or whatever because it pays the bills, right? You've heard that phrase before. This is what she's talking about. It controls you to the point where you don't have complete freedom of movement. And that's what's holding us back. And so because of that, you operate in a safe space, right? In a place where I don't want to take chances, because if something goes wrong, then I'm going to be upside down because I'm living paycheck to paycheck, which, let's be honest, a lot of people do. I used to do that, right? I was in that category before I broke those, chains free and said, no, I want to live my life on my terms. And that's what we're trying to teach you here with Prospering the Kingdom. So, that real battle, though, isn't about just the debt. I mean, that's a big piece of it. Don't get me wrong. That's why you see the radio gurus, Susie, Dave, and Clark all talking about this stuff. But it's so much more than that, right? And let me kind of bring this where it actually lands. The real battle is between discipline and drift. Okay. The battle over your money isn't just external, right? It's internal. Okay. It's you. All right. Drift versus discipline, emotion versus execution, short term versus long term, having that discipline versus just whatever, it'll all work out, and that's where most of us lose it right there. Okay. Because it's not because you're incapable of doing it. It's because you never built that structure. You never built that discipline. And that's, again, the life manual, right? The Bible. Scripture is clear about this, right? The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Everyone who is hasty comes making those quick decisions, those, instant gratification, this, that, and the other. That's Proverbs 21:5, right? And another one, know the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds. Now, they're not talking about, you, Joe listener out there, or Jane listener with your herd of sheep. You probably don't have herds of sheep. Maybe some of you do, which is great. What they're talking about, your flocks, the stuff that you're involved in, right? Your assets, your wealth, your money, because back then flocks were, that was equivalent to wealth, just like Native Americans, horses were equivalent to wealth, right? So, what does that all translate in today's language? Number one, know your numbers. I'm blown away, and I was like this forever. I'm blown away by how many people, what percentage out there do not have a budget in place, or what we like to call spending plan, because, we want to make sure we have money to spend down the road, but we're going to be spending some money today, but you want to be in control of it, right? Track your money. That's the cornerstone. Right? We put out there, all kinds of tools. There's Money Patrol. I personally love Rocket Money. We don't have any affiliate programs. I recommend them because I think they're awesome. But even if it's a simple spreadsheet, right? Yeah. Lead your resources. So many people just kind of float through life and hope it all works out. And, oh man, something happened. And that's why so many people that come into a big amount of money, lottery winners, for example, and I've used this before, within a quick few years, or an inheritance, right? Within a quick few years, all that money's gone.
Yep.
All that money's gone. You get a big bonus from work, all that money's gone, right? Because people aren't taking ownership, having the discipline to lead their own resources, right? Most people don't. And what happens is it costs them years. And if you wait too long, you never actually get to have that retirement goal that you want. You never actually experience true wealth. You may look like you make money because you drive the new, nice new car and you have the big house, but you're racked up to your eyeballs with payments and debts. And that means the dance can never stop for you because you constantly have to keep money coming in.
Right. Most people are just continually maintaining the life that they built. I mean, we had a client say the other day, how do I keep afloat? I rob Peter to pay Paul, right? We're moving money around. Yeah. And, that's not what we're called to build or to do. We're called to build wealth. We're called to steward well. We're called to multiply. We're actually in our book club listening to The Richest Man in Babylon. And it starts right out of the gate. Like the number one rule is to put 10% away, pay yourself first, and get your money to make money and not to lose, but so many of us are not doing that. Right. And all the extra that we have is paying for the mistakes of the past. So, we've been taught to, I mean, look, the system's changing a little bit, but, I know you and I growing up, it was like, go to college and get a degree, get a good salary job with benefits, right? And then put a little bit of money into the 401k and live your life.
It'll all work out.
It'll all work out, house, white picket fence, 3 kids, whatever. But Jesus didn't teach playing small. And there's so much, Jesus talks about money so much in so many different ways. And, he tells that parable of the talents that, that you should invest money and grow money, right? Matthew 25:27 says, you ought to have invested my money, and at my coming, I should have received what was my own with interest.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the guy who buried the talent was actually like, condemned. I don't know what word I want to use, but he was in trouble, right? Like he wasn't rewarded. The master was angry with him because he just buried it and he didn't grow it. So it's not about preserving and sitting on it, burying your money in the backyard, putting it in a jar, right? So saving is one thing, but we're actually called to multiply. And when we're not doing that, I mean, it's disobedience according to the word of God right here. So that focus, and here's the thing, most of us aren't even pulling enough to pay ourselves to be able to multiply.
Yeah. Well, and here's the reality of it, right? So Matthew tells the story of the parable of talents, and it's a critical lesson that you need to read. Again, dive into your instruction manual. You want to live a great life, dive into the instruction manual. But Luke, the lesser known verse is Luke talking about this same story, and I don't know if it's the exact same story. I think it is, because they're telling different perspectives. But Luke in 19:11-27, he actually mentions the servants. In Matthew, they talk about the 3 servants, right?
Yeah.
Well, Luke talks about there were actually 10 servants that were assigned this task. And you don't even hear about the other 7. Why? My assumption is they wanted to play it safe as well. And so they didn't even make the storyline in Matthew. So, that's kind of the critical on how God looks at this. Now, what does that mean for you? He's blessing you with certain income and things like that. And I'm going off, off kind of around a rabbit hole a little bit, but it's really important that, you become a good steward. What does that mean? Well, I tithe, so I'm a good steward. No, not necessarily. Again, you're thinking getting by, you're thinking paycheck to paycheck. You need to be thinking about multiplying. Are you spending or are you deploying? Are you maintaining or are you building? This is the mindset shift that needs to happen. And I'm gonna challenge our Christian listeners out there. That's what this is all about. Yeah. Not about building wealth to have Scrooge McDuck pile of cash that you just kind of dance around and worship the money. That's not what we're talking about at all. But imagine what we could do as a Christian kingdom if we could be generous. And that's one of the things I was actually talking this week to a money coach who's got Jewish background, right? And one of the things that was being discussed was why do people traditionally look at Jewish individuals as being well off financially? Okay, I'm not talking the whole rich stereotype. I'm just talking maintain their money and things like that better than Christians as a whole. Okay, these are general terms, right? Not pointing the fingers at anybody. And it's because in the Old Testament, it deals a lot with money. Okay, there's a lot of rules about money. Again, life's instruction manual. There's a lot of this broken down, like the 5 jars and stuff like that, into the Old Testament. Whereas a lot of Christians, hey, we're under the new covenant, so we're going to read the New Testament. And there's money strategies in there too. We just talked about parable of talents. There's other things too. But a lot of the deep dive detail is in the Old Testament, which a lot of Christians just kind of overlook or skim through. That's why, again, read the whole instruction manual. But, it's important. And we're trying to bring a lot of that into everyday terms, on how, okay, that's great. How do I get out of this? Right. That's where the 3M framework comes in. Okay. And we talk about this. This is kind of what we do at Prospering the Kingdom, right? The 3M framework: make, manage, and multiply. Make more income. Well, that's the easy one, but make more margin. Okay. manage that money better, get your house under control, and then multiply. Again, parable of talents, trying to teach you how to multiply. And that's where the 3M framework comes in. You don't dabble your way out of this. You don't throw a little extra on credit cards. When you get a plan in place, aggressive, and start, making it happen, right? It's not just about working harder. It's about building and incorporating a system. And that's why we teach the whole make, manage, and multiply. All three concurrently, AKA the same time, not one. And then a few years later, you get to the next step. And then, 12 years later, I'm going to start step. No, we're not doing that, right? Let's be realistic. You've only got a finite amount of time to work, a finite amount of time on this planet, and a finite amount of time to take action and make things happen. So we teach you how to do that on whatever budget you have, right? And how to be successful at it. So, again, increasing those, that income, that margin, those skills, right? You need that margin coming in to start. That's your seed for your garden, right? And then managing it. And this is where a lot of people, kind of lose sight. The money comes in and disappears. This is where you take control, AKA the spending plan, right? That's the cornerstone. I joke with people sometimes, depending on the audience, because when, again, you mentioned that B word and people just kind of cringe. It's like, that's why I call it a spending plan, right? But it's not about telling you can't do something. It's about how can I do this while building wealth, building an empire, that kind of stuff for the kingdom. And that's where you take control. That is such an empowering process that once you break through and kind of get the cornerstones laid, it's like the rest of it just becomes so much, I don't want to say easier, but simpler. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the multiply piece. And that's where once you manage it, it's like, it's easy to assign your money task. Every dollar you have has a job to do, not just spend, but actually a job to do. You start building assets early. Hey, Gen Z, talking to you. Even if it's small, right? Because time matters more than timing. Time matters more than timing. Hear me on that. And this is how you move from controlled, stable to being free.
Yeah. And I think, I know for me last year, 2025, I say, people ask about like getting your money right. And it's not just the system, right? All the time. It's how do I stick with the system? And people talk about money mindset. How do you get a better money mindset? Da, da, da.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, I had such an epiphany last year, and it was like, it is not, the world will teach you mindset, but what I went through last year was like God just shifting my mind from being a consumer to being a steward.
Yeah.
And that was the identity shift I needed, is understanding not just 10% is God's, but 100% is God's.
Yep.
And he's entrusted me to manage it well. And, 1 Corinthians 4:2 says it is required of stewards that they be found faithful. Yeah. We are called. It is told that in the word clearly that we are to be faithful stewards. And faithful is not just what most of us are doing out here, is just like going with the flow and hoping it all works out, right?
Yeah, I mean that's reality, right? So, it'll work out.
Yeah, and that's what so many are doing. And faithfulness is not passive. Faithfulness is active. Faith in action, right? It's intentional, it's discipline, it's focused. And we need that shift in our minds to go from what can I spend, right? What can I buy? That consumer mindset that we all have drilled into us. Extra money comes in and it's immediately, what can I now do that was on my list that I want? Yeah. Versus asking what builds freedom. How do we pay ourselves first and start building with that? And, the book we're reading in book club too, PS, if you guys want book club, you can go to prosperinthekingdom.com and go to the events tab, register for book club. But he talks about like, you don't just invest and then that money you make off the investments that you get to keep and spend, But he says the children of your gold and the grandchildren of your gold should all be working for you. And that's what's going to build freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's that's the reality of it. I mean, and that's what it's about. It's kind of, it's 100% his, but he's going to reward the good steward, just like he did in the parable of the talents. Again, read that and really understand it. Don't just read the words, but understand it. Everything that's going on in that story. And that's really what, God is trying to do in your life too. And I want to, I want to leave everybody with this, right? You can keep doing what you've always done. 10 years from now, nothing changes. It's the whole definition of insanity, right? Expecting different results from the same behavior, same stress, same pressure, same cycles. Or, and this is kind of I'm for lack of a better analogy, a revolution call, right? A revolution call. Make a decision right now that you're done living this way. Draw that line in the sand, because it's not just about money, folks. That's not what we're talking about. This isn't prosperity gospel. This isn't about, oh, look at all the wealth that I have. That's not what it's about. And again, join us on our book club, Richest Man in Babylon. Or if you're not going to join us, at least read the book. It's a very quick read. But it's not about the money. It's about control. It's about being a good steward and stewardship of your money, right? That's coming in. It's about finally stepping into the life that you were called to lead. God put a spark of greatness in you. And so many of us are just letting that ember just sit there because we're afraid, because we're operating in a scarcity mindset, because we're just, oh, I can't do anything to rock the boat, or all my house of cards are going to fall down. And that's what debt and all these other things we talk about are meant to keep you in that chaos, that system of chaos with your money. And I'm telling you right now, once you start taking action and you're finally stepping into that life, again, you were called to lead, right? This is a shift that's happening with a lot of people right now, especially people we talk to directly, but just there's an awakening happening, right? People are waking up. People are done being broke. They're done being confused. They're done being dependent upon financial systems, tax systems that they have no idea or understanding of. They're just kind of hoping it all works out, and people are getting sick of it. They're choosing to learn how money works, because I'm going to tell you right now, it's a lot simpler than you believe, okay, than you've been led to believe. Learning how to control it, actually taking action and ownership and taking control of their money, right? And learning how to multiply it, how to build it, right? That's what we call, and I want you to hear me on this, that is the Christian wealth revolution, and you're being called to join it, period. Make a decision, be a part of it, right? Structure, discipline, stewardship, execution, right? Structure, discipline, stewardship, execution. That needs to become your new cycle. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be easy, but it is going to be simple. And we're here to help if you need us, right? So here's the move. If you're tired of the cycle, if you're ready to take control, if you want to start surviving and start building, join us, right? If you need help, you need that first step, get your safe money roadmap. Start educating yourself. A great first read, Richest Man in Babylon. Wendy just shared it with you, right? I'll put a link in the show notes. But you need to realize that by waking up, you're going to see exactly where you really are and why and what needs to change in your life, right? How do you start building real momentum? You don't drift into freedom, folks. You don't drift into success, financially or otherwise, right? You decide into it. You decide to take action, and then you be consistent about your action at whatever level. It doesn't have to be huge strides, just baby steps, right? Little momentum, and then you start building a wave, okay? But realize once you join that Christian wealth revolution, right, you're not just watching anymore, you're actually a part of it, okay? You become a part of a movement. And then you start talking to others and teaching others. That's why we have our affiliate program, right? That's why we have people working with us part-time in their spare time, so they can actually help others in their communities. And I'm excited about it. And if you'd like to learn more about that, I know today's Wednesday is short notice. We've actually got an open house, a virtual open house, to learn more about who we are and what's going on. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Join us if you can. But again, the time is now. The time is here for you to take ownership of your strategy in your life. And let's start freeing some people, folks. So I'll get off my pulpit, man. I'm fired up about this. And I just want to say thanks to everybody. Wendy, I don't know if you have anything else to close us with.
No, I'm good. It's good. Good episode.
All right.
Good word,
So guys,
John Cleaver.
all right. So if you got something out of this, please click and subscribe. Show us a little love. Like I said, it helps. Share this on your social media too. Hey, here's a great message. We also do articles, on LinkedIn, things like that, and would love to get your input on that. But again, prosper in the kingdom. It's there for you, right? And it's time for you to stop living small, to stop, paycheck to paycheck, start making some strides, start breaking those chains that we talked about and living your best life ever. And we're here to help you any way that we can. So everybody have a great week. We'll see you next week on another Prosper in the Kingdom. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Prosper in the Kingdom. If this episode added value to your day, be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with someone who could use the encouragement. For more resources, head to prosperinthekingdom.com. Let's continue building lives of purpose and abundance, one step at a time.